Welcome to the Unscripted Authentic Leadership Podcast, a podcast we are seeking to lead change while also seeking to understand. We are also here to provide a platform for leaders to unite, to come together to unite, to develop and empower other leaders in the areas of business, family, faith, and community. I'm your host, Lafayette Lane, joined by my co-host, John LeBron. And today we are joined by special guest, Rodney H. Dixon, to have a conversation about sticking to the vision plan. Those of you that will watch and listen to this, you can put those virtual hands, you can put those comments in the comment section, the clap emojis there for our special guest. As again, we talk about this incredible conversation of sticking to the vision plan. Those of you that are visionaries, you don't want to miss what's getting ready to take place in this awesome, engaging conversation. Just before we get into it, though, we definitely want to say thank you to all of our Unscripted Authentic Leadership Podcast family. Those of you that are part of our YouTube channel there, Unscripted Authentic Leadership. Those of you are part of our various social media platforms, whether it be Facebook, Unscripted Authentic Leadership, or our Instagram family that are followers there at Unscripted Leadership, are part of our LinkedIn family, Unscripted Authentic Leadership. And those of you that do not watch the podcast, but you are part of our listening audience that can listen to our podcast on the various streaming platforms. Really anywhere podcasts can be streamed, from Apple to Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and Stitcher. And we want you to check us out, connect with us, engage with us, even on our website there, unscripted-leadership.com. We've got some new merch available there for you. When you sign up for our Unscripted Club email group, those that are in the email group will get special previews, get some insights and some information with things that we have brewing, some things down the road. Again, you'll receive a 10% off merch code when you sign up for our Unscripted email group club. Let's get into the conversation. We definitely want to make Rodney feel right at home. He's our special guest today, as again, we have special guest Rodney H. Dixon, who is the author of his new book, The Making of Atoma Merc, Fighting the Ghost of White Supremacy. He is also a solar energy guru and serves as a business consultant to prominent members of the Arab world, including but not limited to members of royal families. He's also an ancestor to Ramses III, an ancient Egyptian pharaoh. Rodney H. Dixon is a very interesting gentleman already, as we've read that bio. And I'm going to allow him to just tell us where he's from, a little bit more about himself at this time. Rodney?
How's it going, gentlemen? Glad to be on your show. Much appreciated. So my background, I'm actually born in Brooklyn, New York, and I consider to be bi-coastal because I was raised in both Brooklyn, New York, and in Pomona, California, and I went back and forth. One parent lived in New York, the other parent lived in Southern California. So as a basketball guy, I learned how to play on both sides of the pond, and that elevated my game because of it. And from there, I've been kind of a little bit of everywhere, which I'm sure we'll get into as the different business endeavors have taken me to different places, but those are the main two.
Absolutely. That's interesting. I like the analogy that you use from the West Coast to the East Coast. Very good, man. That is excellent. Now, I think that it opens up right into our topic today when it talks about vision, because literally you've seen a variety of places because of the sceneries that you've been a part of. And that's what we want to talk about, this whole idea of sticking to a vision plan. A lot of people have a vision plan or a vision board. They have aspirations, but we want to put emphasis on the part of sticking to it. We've all been in that place where we started the New Year's with New Year's resolutions and had many things that we wanted to accomplish, and got 2 to 3 months down the road. Really, we haven't been consistent with those visions and those things that we wanted to do. But having such a visionary and a leader as yourself on the podcast today, I want you to start us off, Rodney, telling us about your vision plan and how you were able to stick through that and have consistency in the vision that you had for yourself in your life.
Beautiful. Very good point. Very good question. So it's 2 different ways you can see how to go about following a plan. So, there's different folks who write it out and they put it on their wall. And so every day, every morning, they're looking at that on the wall. And so they can stay focused on that particular thing every single day. And there's the academia approach. None of that's my approach. So
Okay.
my, my approach is more of a holistic approach. It's a religious approach. So for me, it's all about getting a conviction, finding which is what I do in business and everything else that I do, finding the reason behind it rather than just the outward goal, right? Because if I don't know the reason behind it, to me, that's where people start falling short of the goal. Because then if it has to be something that you have to remember, if you have to go look at something on a wall, then it's not inside, it's outside,
Yeah.
right? So now you always got to find outside motivations. Well, there's too many things that go on with a human being internally, whether it be emotions, things that trip you up in your life. And so if it's only an external motivation, as soon as something hits you internally, you're going to miss that. That's when you're going to fall off. So that's what happens with what you were talking about with those New Year's resolutions, right? Let's say there's an emotional imbalance and you set these goals to work out every day, but you didn't necessarily learn how to combat and overcome that emotional thing that kind of throws you off. Well, the minute that it hits you, there goes the game plan, right? And that's usually what throws people off. It's not the desire. They desire, they have the motivation there until something hits. And then as soon as something hit, you don't have that to draw from.
Yeah.
So you need a conviction. You need an internal conviction, not an outside source of power.
Wow. That's a weighty word. That word you talked about, conviction, and finding the reason. That's one of the things that we emphasize here on the podcast. Many times we've talked about having that internal drive, having that reason, as you talked about, whatever that is. And I believe you were alluding to faith, but it could be a variety of things. Whatever is in that core of you, it's like that apple. You see the apple that's good on the outside, but the root of the apple is the core of the apple. Talk to us about a little bit more
That's
about,
right.
you're a businessman, you're a leader, and we're talking about the vision plan. Talk a little more about the core of who you are.
So is that the core of who I am is by faith, is faith. So I'm led by faith, right? Man
Sure.
of God. And so everything has to have a rhyme and a reason to what that objective is. And because of that, the plan is the core. Because the plan is the core, right, which is the conviction, then when things start to seem like they're being altered, you already know that all things work out for those who love and follow the Lord. So as a result, it's always going to come back to your center anyway. And so people have seen me involved with so many different things in my life, right? And then they're like, okay, it's kind of disjointed or whatever. And then all of a sudden they see where, oh, wow, everything came together. It's like, well, yeah, because I'm following a conviction. I'm not necessarily following a beaten path that somebody else might have drawn up. If I follow the conviction, right, it's going to take me to that center anyway. So you got to have that conviction. You stay focused on that, everything else will meet up.
Wow.
Would you say that's basically similar to saying that when you say your plan is the core, basically saying that that's your calling is essentially what you're trying to say? The plan is what you've been
It is
called
your
to do?
calling, but when you get called, when you follow a calling, all you know is that you were called.
Yeah.
And you know who called you.
Mm-hmm.
And 9 times out of 10, you will know where they called you from,
Yeah.
right? So that's just like a phone call, right? Usually, if your friend calls you, right? Like I got a friend, he drives trucks. Every time he calls me, one of my first questions that I ask him is, "Where are you?" Now, the reality is where he is irrelevant to the call, right?
Yeah.
The bottom line is that he called me.
Mm-hmm.
But my curiosity and caring about my friend is, where are you, right?
Yeah.
And so if you look at, let's say, the biblical perspective, that's what God did. Adam blew it in the garden.
Yeah.
God's looking around from him. He's hiding. He's like, where are you? Right? So the where are you is out of concern, right? So that's where it is. So yes, the calling, people get caught up in the calling. So all I really want to know is who's making the call,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so in that case, as long as I know who's making the call, then it's not on me.
Mm-hmm.
It's on the person making the call, right?
Mm.
So if the caller is the one who made the plan, it's not my plan anyway. So how am I going to plan a plan that's not mine, right?
Mm-hmm.
The scripture says, man makes plan, God laughs.
Mm-hmm.
So I just got to stick to his plan.
Mm-hmm.
So then what's the key? What's his plan? Well, that he's driving the ship. that's the plan. So then if he's driving the ship, he's giving me talents.
Sure.
The talents will drive me to where he wants me to be.
Amen.
As long as I follow him. That's where the word comes in. Everything else comes from him.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no such thing as a quote unquote. It's like when I studied out business plans, right? And when I first got into feasibility studies and business plans, there is nothing in a business plan that I read that I can't find that principle in the word. You get what I'm saying? So if I stay on the higher focus, who's making the call, everything else comes together because he's the God of all categories, all careers. So I go to the bigger picture. The smaller pictures become easier. Now there's I can do specific breakdowns, as I'm sure we're going to do in this particular call. But since you're asking me about where my core is, right?
Yeah.
That's the core of a person's body. The hands got to go where the core goes. The legs have to go where the core goes. The head's got to go where the core goes, right? Basketball, I'm playing defense on the guy. I'm watching his core.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, I love what you said about when we have these plans, everybody wants to do an A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So if I don't have a child by 35, my time clock is up. If I haven't made this certain amount of money by this age, then my life is in complete shambles and my life is over. But what you said is that if you find your core, if you find your purpose, if you find what you were meant to do, you'll find your plan. And ultimately, whatever you believe about your faith or whatever it is, it's really not in your control or in your hands in the first place. And so I think that was very powerful. Those that will listen to this, don't get so caught up in, I'm not at this particular stage that I see others at the same age that I'm in life. So I don't think that God has a plan for me, or I can't stick to the vision. I can't execute the plan. It's all about finding your core wherever age you are. It's never too late to do that. I think it's interesting that you are a international business consultant and solar professional. I don't know what that is, but I would like for you to explain to us. I know what a business consultant is, but as far as the solar professional, how did you, in your plan of life, how did you end up in that arena of work and expertise? And can you explain to our audience what your vision is in that particular area of solar energy and being a solar professional?
Well, so beautiful question again. And it fits right into the narrative of what we're saying. When I first started looking at solar, it was when I first entered the music industry. So just to show you how things work, I'm in the music industry, and at the time, gospel music wasn't really very funky. It is now, but not then, right? So, I'm going, okay, I like funky music, right? So this is not going to get it. But at the same time, the music industry that was funky was crazy. Right? The themes were crazy, right? Doing about anything. So I'm sitting here between the two. And I said, well, how can I be funky and it not be crazy?
Okay.
Right. So I started coming up with solar energy themes. This was before there was any solar energy running around. So I found a way to basically, because solar is light, right? So you're talking about light energy, light versus dark, the nighttime, the fossil fuels are in the dark, etc. So I was able to basically create characters and things like that that would have this light versus dark and put it in the solar energy space. And yet it fulfilled the narrative that I wanted, which was to make sure that I was on the right side of the thing. I had no idea that it was going to lead into what it led to. But then as time goes on, I started getting deeper and deeper into that, learning more about how energy works. Then I was dealing with some guys from the Arab world and oil and gas. So I found out how that works. I got into an energy called hydrogen on demand. So by the time I actually entered the solar industry, because the industry didn't really hit until like 2005, I had already been 20 years in mastering the concepts regarding solar, and it didn't exist as an industry. So by the time the industry hit and I entered it, I became the top seller in the country with solar energy because I knew everything about it before it really hit. Now, if I rewind it back like I do now, I know for sure that was God the whole time. So that's what I'm saying, where he has this whole thing. And if you're following on core now, had I said back in the beginning, I got to make this money and I got to make it now because I can't be waiting too late. I don't want to be too late to capitalize, etc. And had I taken that analogy, I wouldn't have written that. I would have been writing the crazy music. At that point, I probably never would have matched up to the destiny.
Mm-hmm.
What I heard and what you just said was something I think that is very important, especially in the age that we live in. You were unwilling to compromise. Even if compromise at the moment seemed that it would benefit you, you stuck to the core of who you were, not knowing that in the future, God was already going to take care of you anyways. But you had a decision to make, and it all wraps up into that vision and that core that I am not going to compromise in this moment. And so you were able to draw that paradigm between the light and the darkness. And here you have the solar professional, solar energy, which was really not even in your wheelhouse, but it was birthed out of your core. That is amazing.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And the not compromising wasn't easy.
Sure.
Because I ended up broke for a while.
Yep.
Right. And then there's the temptation, like, well, if you just do a few of these songs and put some money in your pocket,
right.
But I just couldn't do it. So as a result, I kind of knew. And then that's when God started talking to me back then, like, you're going to look kind of, goofy for a while, because I had abandoned basketball. I was a top basketball player in California and New York. So I abandoned basketball for this music career. And then when I got to the music scene, it was crazier than I thought it was.
Yeah.
So now it's like, oh, shoot, what am I going to do? And I decided to, like you said, stick to the guns. But the guy I was working with, which was Prince at the time, I had to say to myself, well, I know what I'll do to kind of control it and manipulate it. I'm going to convert him. Right? If I can convert him, then it's all good. We're going to make it work. He was like, nah.
Right.
It took a long time to try to get on that page. So in the meantime, we were doing like this, clashing heads, and it wasn't going. He wasn't yielding, and I wasn't yielding. So it was one of these for a long time, and I was the one who ended up broke as a result. But then it all works out for the good, right?
Absolutely.
So many times, and I've seen this with me and everybody. Since we don't see the big picture ourselves all the time, we think that we're behind because we think our life is supposed to look like what someone else's life currently looks like, right? I always say, don't compare like your beginning to someone else's end. And so people always look at, or even someone who has a jump start. I remember getting out of college and losing my job right away and working at a warehouse. So all your buddies have like engineer jobs. They look like they're doing great, buying a house, buying fancy cars. Mine's a beater. All those things. But then at the same time, as you can relate, because you've made multiple pivots, you're like, I just don't think that's my direction. And so your direction while to everybody else, it looks like, what is he doing? Like, just go use your degree or go over there and make some more money. Like, we all got a house and new cars. You have an apartment and your car sucks. What are you doing? And then they're like, well, we'll still be your friend, but whatever. And then you keep making your steps. And then when they get to be their mid 30s, pushing 40s, their life is one, boring. Two, they're not happy with their career, but they stick with it because they don't know what else to do. Income quickly slows. Everybody who knows, okay, when your buddies become engineers and stuff and whatever they are, it looks like they're doing great, but income eventually slows down real quick as they get older. And then that's when you start to accelerate because now you've been walking in what you've loved and what you know you're supposed to do. And then now you're getting good at it. And as you said, you're an industry expert, but you didn't know you're going to be an industry expert 20 years ago. Right? Just walking in faith, doing what you feel like you're supposed to do. Like God can always catch you up, and His plan will always catch you up and surpass what you think you were supposed to be, or what you think when you think you're behind. As long as you follow that plan. So I love that story. I think so many people can relate, especially the listeners who are like young entrepreneurs, or I'm young. I'm 30, almost 38, so I'm not that young, but I'm young. Pushing 40. But you can always catch up. Everybody listen to the story. It's amazing. So I really appreciate that analogy because I think so many people can relate to having a goal, having a dream, and feeling like they are just always a few steps behind everybody else because everybody else has more vacation time, as they call it. Everybody else watches more shows on Netflix at night and stuff like that. The reality is, there's no fun in watching Netflix. I'm just saying, I'm sure it's fine every now and then. I'll watch a show sometimes with my wife, but who wants to spend every night doing that? Like, how boring is it?
Well, I've been around people with extreme levels of money.
Yeah.
And I haven't met too many people with extreme levels of money that aren't I wouldn't say they're all miserable, but they're not very happy, right? And a lot of them have serious depression issues because they've acquired money young, and when they got it, they realized that there wasn't anything else. It's like you can only buy so many things, right? I'm running around in Arabia. They try to hand me the credit card so I won't go home. I'm sitting there going, man, drive me to the mall that their family owns, park in the parking lot, and say, here, don't go. Here's my credit card. Go in there and buy anything you want. And I'm in the car doing like this, like, don't hand me the credit card. For one, I don't need your credit card. For two, and I've told them, there is absolutely nothing in that mall that exists that can make me stay another day. I will be back when it's time for me to come back. But I'm just not a guy you can buy, because money has very little to do with where you're trying to head. Money is there to buy something, pay for something. That's really all money can do. It can build something, right? But money has limitations. And when these guys get a lot of money, some of them have more money than they have innovation, insight. Then it makes you frustrated because you don't know what to do with the money, right? You don't know what to build. You don't know. You bought everything. You have everything. And so there's only so much you can buy. It's like what I say. I go, well, there's only so much food you can eat, right? There's only so much food you can eat. I don't care if you have 100 billion, your stomach can only take in so much. So you're going to max out no matter what. Now you can just buy a bigger and bigger and bigger house on more and more and more things. That's why you have people with lots of money now looking for philanthropic things they can get into. And they work harder now than they did as a CEO to make the money. So you should be always working, but when you get people going, oh, I need to make all this money so I can retire and do nothing. I go, well, at that point, you might as well be dead. You're doing nothing.
Right.
It doesn't make any sense.
It says, man without vision shall perish. So,
yeah, definitely.
So when you were spending all this time with, you said you knew people with filthy, wealthy, and were miserable. How about the opposite? Anybody who's, well, half opposite. Anybody who is very wealthy and still excited about life and moving forward?
I have never met that person.
Oh, okay. I was
Right.
just wondering what the difference would be.
I've met people where they're all amped out when I show up.
Yeah.
Right. Because now, you know, Rodney, the cool guy, showed up. Right. And so, yeah, you know, now it's not the money. Right. I've sat in cars where guys are offering them ridiculous levels of money. They're trying to hand me the phone. I get on the phone. Hey, we're offering the guy this much money. You've got $50 million for a real estate deal. And I'm looking at my buddies over here. They're like, I don't have time for that. Right. They just don't care because they've seen it all day long. So you can't have this conversation in the Arab world. Money's not going to make any of those dudes jump. I don't care how much you're talking. You can say $50 billion, $100 billion, they'll go to sleep, right? They just don't care. So money doesn't really motivate them. So yes, I've seen guys not too fired up about things. They might be fired up in the moment because they're doing a deal in the moment. But then as soon as they get the money, another barrel of dough, right?
Mm-hmm. Now, to put things in context for a listener, which I don't think listeners know, and correct me if I'm wrong, seriously, but I'm pretty sure a lot of the incredibly wealthy families in some of the Arabian nations have acquired, like, come into that wealth because of natural resources and so forth, right? Isn't it the oils and so forth? And basically it was given to the family. The family somehow came into it, and they are basically forever wealthy. They probably aren't even doing anything to create that right now. They're just part of the family. Does that sound about right?
It's about right. And here's the deal on that.
Yeah. Wealth, and then everybody else is dirt poor.
Yes. But wealth is relative.
Yeah.
So a lot of these families were merchant, right? Bedouin families, merchant families for 1,000 years, 2,000 years, right? So one thing about that part of the world is they're connected to that ancestry throughout generations after generations after generations, different than America, especially for African Americans. So over there, they're really connected like that. So although they hit oil and they hit mega wealth, they were still relative to their society wealthy the whole time. They just weren't wealthy compared to the big boys in the oil and gas game or whatever. Now they're wealthy on that side, but a lot of the families that are in control, the royal families or the ruling families, were in control anyway. So that's why I say wealth is relative. They were already wealthy, and now they have this mega wealth, and so they start acquiring things. But a lot of it, they like to do business ventures or build. And they want to build up their societies, and they have, you know, large developments or whatever the case may be. And now they're trying to establish where other people around the world will feel safe in those types of places and come and visit those type of places. So that's a new thing. That's a lack of wealth right there, right? If you have a bunch of money, but people aren't wanting to come hang out with you and hang out in your environment, you know what I mean? That's a whole nother animal.
Sure. So Rodney, you are a multifaceted guy. You are a solo professional. You're an international business consultant, but you're also an author. I want you to talk about your book, man. I'm interested to hear what the motivation, what the message is behind the book. The title of the book is The Making of Atoma Merc, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, Fighting the Ghost of White Supremacy. What is the book about? What was your intention? What's your goal, your vision when you wrote the book? What's the message behind it?
So it's Atoma Merc.
Atoma Merc, okay.
But some people do pronounce it Atoma Merc, but it's because it derives from the concept of an atom, ATOM.
Gotcha.
right?
Okay.
So when I explain this, a lot of people aren't aware of what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
They will know more and more as they read the book. But there's a DNA group called haplogroup A. Haplogroup A is the DNA that comes out of Africa, basically referring to like the first man that ended up being the man that everybody is deriving from. And
Okay.
so that's called haplogroup A. It's out of Africa. So you got atom, which is the core nucleus of cells that are make up a person and planets, etc. And so this is basically a universal character. So Atoma is a character that I created, and
Okay.
he's a solar superhero. And his makeup is derived from these atoms, but he's also from haplogroup A, the first beginning mankind, which are African Americans, or Africans. So you have Atoma, and then Merc was my nickname. It was short for Mercury, for speed and size, etc.
Okay.
And I'm the author, so combine this Atoma Merc. Now the character was first featured on a cover of a CD I created, which was a solar CD back in 1991 called The Master of Seven, which you can hear on Reverb Nation today, where I'm talking about solar energy, distribution of solar, marketing of solar, and all these solar concepts back in 1991. Of course, the Clean Air Act didn't happen until 2005. So when I was singing about all this stuff and creating all this stuff with this solar superhero, my friends over in Minneapolis in the music scene and all was like, what in the world are you talking about? Of course, years later, they're like, oh, shoot. He knew what he was talking about. So the book goes into all that. The book is going to where he comes from. That's why it's called The Making of. The Making of Atoma Merc. So it's going into all of that. It's talking about being a Black kid raised up in the African-American world, and how back when I was a kid, the stereotypes, which still exist, but they were really heavy then, the stereotypes about, who you should be, what you should be. And here, my dad's a scientist, biochemist. So we were learning about water power and electricity and things like that as kids. It just wasn't the norm in our community.
Sure.
That's what this book is all about, is removing those stereotypes to show, hey, this is the making of it, and you don't have to fall into stereotypes.
Absolutely. I love that, especially coming off the heels of Juneteenth and the progress that we have made, but we still do have a long way to go. I did have a question for you that you posed. You talked about Black people creating a subculture in America. What do you mean by that?
So going back to slavery, the basic ideals of society, of culture, the things that non-Blacks could do, particularly whites, have land, till the land, gain profits from it, sell it to a market wholesale, and they sell it to the marketplace retail. All of that, while as a slave, you were product, right? You were property, right? Personal property, just like an orange or an apple or anything else that was traded. So as a result, the banking, real estate, housing, all the things that was just normal in society, the slaves couldn't participate in it. So in slavery, Black Africans that become in America, I can't even call them African Americans at the time because they weren't American citizens, had to develop a culture to exist, because you couldn't do any of those things. So by the time freedom hit, right, after the Emancipation Proclamation and some years later, and now you mentioned Juneteenth, right? By the time that one came about, then there was a good number of people who thought that if you were Black and you started to endeavor into those types of things, you were quote unquote being white, wanted to be white. So the association with what was normal, everyday business world capitalization was looked at as being white, because for the longest, blacks couldn't participate in it. So the culture of black people was under this normal civilization that some blacks said, you got to keep it real. And it was keeping it real to a subculture, right? So you got to understand that that was the mindset, that was the thinking, and now just participating in what's normal is not white. It's just everybody now can participate in it.
I think that is great, because as I look around our community, a lot of us still have that mindset. We see somebody that's going to college or someone that talks proper, quote unquote, then it's deemed as, oh, you're talking white or you're acting white. When no, I'm just being the core of who I'm created to be. And so I think that's great, because no matter where you come from, no matter if anybody in your family has never got a degree or went to college, on this platform, we believe that you can rise above any circumstance. You can rise above any of the stereotypes, as you talked about, because ultimately God has all given us a vision and a plan on the inside of us, of the core of our being, to be the best that we can be. And that is above, not beneath. Rodney, is there anything else that you wanted to leave our unscripted, authentic leadership family? If you were to give us your last words, what would you leave with the unscripted family as we wrap up?
Well, I mean, just that you have to follow God's plan for your life. And then I have people ask me all the time, well, how do I figure that out? It's going to be based on your talents. Now, the key is you might not necessarily know all of your talents. So there's talent inside of you that must be discovered. And those talents could be what's going to get you to that destination that God has acquired for you, that's set up for you. For example, when my friend gave me the first business plan I ever seen, and I asked him to do one for me, he wouldn't. He was my mentor. He handed it to me. And I read it. And I said, why didn't you do it for me? He said, because you would never learn how to do it. So when I did it, as I was reading it, it was like reading a comic book. It was that simple to me, but I had never seen one in my life. So it was what was inside of me. So I say, if you're going to try to get to where God wants you to be, or you want to be, then you can't be afraid to endeavor in the areas that you've never done before. That's how you're going to find out what you have. That's why you see me doing so many things, because society wants you to be good at only one thing. You actually have 5 talents, and God said, if He gives you 5, go bring back 5 more. You got to have 10.
Society only wants you to find your talent if it fits within a specific definition. Like when you're a senior, what should you go to college for? So if it's not on the college curriculum, it's probably not your talent. Is essentially how it feels going through school. I was literally about to ask you, what do you say if somebody doesn't know how to find your talents? But I think you just answered that with try stuff. Like literally, just go be adventurous and try stuff. And that was my exact feeling. You just worded it way better than I would have ever done. So yeah, everybody out there, just go try stuff. You just do it. I don't do anything for anybody that they can't do for themselves. Doesn't mean you won't help them. It just means that they got to give it the first shot.
Get into anything and everything positive. If it's positive, jump in it. Amen. Right? And then see how, if like I'm not the most gifted cat at putting stuff together. So my talent is not building the darn building, right? I'm not the tech guy, but I've created innovative concepts using tech people and understanding how it should work where techs couldn't figure it out. You know what I mean? So
that's so good. I know I said we were wrapping up, but you just said something that just sparked me.
Keep going.
You said in the area that you weren't necessarily strong in, but you surrounded yourself with people that you were deficient in that area, but you surrounded yourself with people that were strong where you were weak.
That's correct. But they didn't have vision.
Exactly.
So I had vision.
Vision.
Because I had vision, I could figure out what that tech should do.
Good.
They knew tech, but they didn't have any vision. So they only did what they were shown before.
Great.
I made tech do something they never thought about. And when the tech guy told me, he said, you know, we could do all types of things, but nobody ever came up with the concept you came up with. So
Wow.
That's how Apple started. Nobody thought of touchscreen iPads. When we first saw the phones, we were like, where's the buttons? I need buttons. I'm sticking with my BlackBerry because it has buttons, full QWERTY board. Remember that?
Yeah.
And Steve Jobs said, yeah, we'll see. Anybody have a BlackBerry phone anymore? No. Why? Because they're not as good.
So what you're saying is that when you walk in your purpose, when you walk in the core, when people are around you, it'll spark the innovation and the creativity in them that they didn't even know they had, because you decided to walk in who you were supposed to be.
that's correct. That's correct.
Amazing. Listen, those of you that were watching, listen to this. We don't want you to just listen to what Rodney has to say on here, but we want you to go out and purchase that book, The Making of Atoma Merc, The Fighting the Ghost of White Supremacy, that is available now on Amazon.com, and it's also available on Barnes & Noble. You also can connect with Rodney on social media. On LinkedIn, you can find him there, Rodney H. Dixon. We've mentioned how he is a solar professional. He offers Zoom consultations in California and also in the area of North Carolina. If that is something that you're in need of, he is an excellent, excellent professional. And let me say this as a Black man to another Black man, a proud Black man, a Black professional, making it happen, going against the stereotypes, improving the overall persona that we are not minorities. We are the majority, and we are making great happen, and we're doing it every day. This has been another amazing episode here on the Unscripted Authentic Leadership Podcast. Again, we say thank you to our special guest, Rodney H. Dixon, for the incredible, incredible wisdom and gems that you dropped on this episode. Again, we want you to continue to follow Unscripted Authentic Leadership Podcast on our YouTube channel, on our various social media platforms. Stream our podcast wherever you can find your podcast. Connect with us on our website, unscripted-leadership.com, where you can sign up for our Unscripted Club email group and receive that merch code. And again, follow Rodney Dixon there on his LinkedIn page. Get his book, connect with him, as he is a solo professional there. We thank you and we pray that you be the leader that God has called you to be. As always, we're here to build bridges and not walls. Bridges connect and walls divide. Until next time.